Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of The Career Climb. On The Career Climb, we spark conversations with industry leaders, executives, and professionals, and they share their perspectives on the career landscape, leadership, and workplace culture. And I cannot wait for you to meet tonight's guest. But first, if this is your first time in the building with us, I am your host, Julia Rock, founder and CEO at Rock Career Development. And if you want to catch the replay of this and all our past episodes, you can connect with me here on LinkedIn, or you can visit our YouTube channel. You can go to rockcareer.com/CC archive, and you'll get access to our YouTube playlist. But tonight, I would love for you to turn it up in the chat. Please show us some love. Let us know where you're dialing in from. I already see that Dan is in the building. Hey, Dan, happy to see you. Thank you for joining us. But let us know where you're watching from. What is resonating with you? What's powerful? What questions do you have? We want to make sure that this is an interactive and vibrant discussion. But we're going to get going. If you've been here before, I like to start on time because I want to really get into this conversation. And tonight we're having a bit of a different conversation. Normally we're speaking of career-focused topics, but tonight we're going to talk about those who are on the entrepreneurial path, maybe not the 9-to-5 setting, and pitching your way to success and how you can build your profitable pitch. But if you're a 9-to-5er that's listening, I don't want you to feel left out because pitching can definitely serve you in your career, making sure that you are successful going after promotions or going after new job opportunities. But if you've been here before, you also know that I like to fully introduce my guests. So before I bring Tiffany on, I want to share a little bit more about her. So Tiffany A. Washington is a professional speaker, author, and business and leadership consultant. Her consultancy, Transformation 7 LLC, provides training and development services that helps coaches, consultants, and authors and experts to add an extra six figures, y'all, to their revenue with corporate contracts so they can finally experience consistent, predictable income. Her work has allowed her to keynote for multi-billion-dollar companies, that's billion with a B, such as Rolls-Royce and Humana, and provides specialized services for large urban school districts like Houston ISD. Tiffany is also a recurring guest expert on the CW and Fox networks and has been featured in Forbes magazine. As a former assistant principal, Tiffany utilizes her leadership capabilities to build sustainable businesses that help business owners leave a family legacy. Woo! Hey, Tiffany, welcome to the show.
Hey, Julia. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm so excited to have you on the show. I know it's been a minute. I've been percolating on this, so I'm glad that you were able to squeeze me into your busy schedule to come on the show tonight. So excited for tonight's conversation.
So am I, and it's such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to get into this conversation and hear what questions your audience has. Let's make this a dynamic dialogue.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. So let's go ahead and hop in because we're talking about pitching, but I want to kind of scene set for those who are listening. So if you want to share a little bit more about your career journey, we covered a little bit in the bio, but a little bit more about your career journey and what led you to launching a company that's focused on helping business owners be successful in landing six-figure deals.
Yeah, so I started out in education, K-12 education. And once I decided that it was time for me to exit, I thought back on some of the things that pushed me or propelled me to that point, because some of your listeners may be at a transition period inside of their careers, perhaps. And for me, it was somebody that I like to call a work hag. This is a coined term that I use inside of my book. And a work hag is essentially a maliciously vicious colleague whose primary goal is to void the workplace of positive human interaction. And they also use their venomous nature to poison the climate and culture of work communities. So I experienced this work hag as an assistant principal, and it ended up causing me to ask for a switch. in my job placement. And when I finally got that switch, which was months later, after filing a complaint, after meeting with the higher ups, and they finally decided to switch me, they switched me to a completely different campus that was an hour and 15 minutes away from my home. And in Houston, that commute can be brutal. So sometimes it took up to almost 2 hours to get to work on a really bad day with traffic. And I had to figure out a way to start taking ownership of the skills that I already had. And one of the things that I knew for sure is that I had several skills that I'd been building up through my formal career inside of education. One of them being speaking, and the other one being writing. So I said, how can I combine those two things and actually start to make money? So I decided that I was going to write a book. That book is called Women Winning at Work. But I wrote that book over the course of 21 days. And of course, that's my first draft. Like, of course, you have to go through all of the changes with the polishing of your book. But the original draft, it took me 21 days to write. And in that 21 days, I realized that this was going to be the book that was going to propel my journey into keynote speaking, which is how I was able to start landing opportunities with places like Rolls-Royce and Humana, because I decided that the skills that have been given to me should not be put to waste, if you will, just because I had a poor experience inside of my formal career. So I decided back in 2016 that I was going to quit my job. So in 2015, I turned in my resignation papers, and I knew that when my contract ended, that was going to be my last year. And after that, I just started booking these opportunities. I started applying for speaking opportunities. I started asking around for other people to give me leads into opportunities. I didn't know what I was doing. Even though I had previously run a business with my mom, it was a home healthcare agency. So the landscape was completely different. And I was figuring it out along the way. But what ended up happening is, as I started to win more and more opportunities, people started asking me, well, how are you doing this? Because I was posting it online. How are you landing engagements with these multi-billion-dollar companies? And that's what got me into the online side of things and teaching other men and women how to land corporate contracts. Now, that's morphed over the years because it started out as just how do you land speaking engagements. And as I started to build my consultancy, what I realized was a key to that consulting part was the fact that people wanted to tap my expertise in education. And as they started to tap my expertise in education, I landed a contract with the city of Houston for their Department of Education and consulted with them on a major project that started over 10 months. That particular project was a 75K opportunity. That was more than I had ever made on my K through 12 job. So I said, wait a minute, you can do this? and I didn't have to work every single day, and I didn't have to work 8 hours per day. Yes, sign me up. So that was the start of it. And I eventually transitioned my consulting into leadership development. And so now I help to transform other toxic teams. So there's a duality to what I do. There's the online component where I teach others how to build out their consultancies and their coaching programs. And then the real in-person side of it, where I actually consult in real time and hire on other people who do that consulting alongside me.
What I love about what you said was the idea that you use skills you already had in order to grow your business. And I think for those who are seeking to transition, whether between careers or transition out of a career, a corporate career into entrepreneurship, they may be thinking, well, can I use what I already have? What's transferable? What's not? And I love the fact that you said, hey, I took what I had and I made it work. And that's how I was able to grow my business. And what I also love was that you mentioned, hey, you took a bad situation and you turned it into something positive. It's easy if you're stuck in your business or stuck in your career that, you can wallow in that. And you were like, I'm not going to wallow in that. I'm gonna get up and move on. So I just love that. And now you're helping people to do the same. So I love it.
Yes, I will say though, it was a little bit of wallowing, just a little bit. I did wake up crying every morning for a good couple of months, waking up early just to cry before I got out of the bed. But I eventually got over it.
But I appreciate that. That's real though. It's like
Yeah.
it's not like you woke up the next day and said, "Hey, I'm happy." It's
Yeah.
like it took some time. You had to get there. So I love that.
Yeah.
So let's get into it, because I think the term pitching has such a negative connotation, right? It's giving snake oil salesman, right? Like what is it that you're trying to sell me? And so I wanted to get your perspective as to what is it that people get wrong about pitching, because that's the idea that it comes across as like somebody's trying to always sell me something or they're trying to spam me. So what do you think people get wrong about pitching or preparing their own pitch?
Yeah, I think pitching is the entryway into sales. It's not sales itself. And I think that's one of the common misconceptions about pitching. I
Mm.
like to define pitching as a compelling conversation that begins with a well crafted, succinct statement that positions you for a future business opportunity. That's all it is. It's not you saying, "Hey, you want to buy this?" It is, "Hey, this is who I am and this is how we serve." So it comes in the form of emails, telephone calls, virtual visits, in-person visits. When you're pitching, you're not just sending blind cold pitch emails all of the time. You're literally pitching yourself every day, but when you do it formally, one of the things that I see people get wrong is that you think you have to always sell. That's not what you do. The first thing you do is you pique curiosity, right? So you pique interest inside of your product or your service, and that's going to open the door. So once people open the door for you and say, I am curious, then they offer an opportunity for you to have a further conversation with them. So people miss crafting compelling verbiage about how they solve a problem, and that typically tanks a good pitch.
Mm, I like that because, like you said, people just lead with, "Hey, here are all the things I can do," right? And they're trying to
Mhm.
show all of their magic tricks instead of just saying, "Here's who I am and here's the value I bring," and then let someone be intrigued enough to then have a conversation. Have a conversation with you. And
Yeah.
I think about, just thinking from a career perspective, I feel like your pitch is almost like it's a mini kind of succinct version of your resume that piques enough interest to
Mhm.
get you an interview, right? That's what it is. Your pitch is a mini version of your resume to say, "Hey, this is who
Mhm.
I am, this is what I offer." And someone may say, Tiffany, I like what she said, let me interview her, which would be the opportunity for a conversation. So I love
Yeah.
that perspective. And you talked a little bit about, some of the missteps, like the idea that they are skipping to the sale. Is there anything else that you see as a kind of a misstep that people make with pitching? And do you see anything different between men and women?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is what I want to put a pin in first. The best way for you to get to what you desire, whether you are at a 9 to 5 job or you want someone to purchase your service, is to help someone else to attain what they desire. So when you pitch, you're going to have to make sure that it solves a pain point that they can't see for themselves fully without receiving some type of support, right? So part of it is you illuminating what some of the issues are that they hadn't even considered or may have been overlooking. And then when you start to look at pitching through the lens of the person who actually needs the support and is clear on some of what needs to happen, then you place your business in a winning position. So what I know for sure is that we start millions of businesses every single year, but only a few of them survive, a small percentage. And the ones who endure, they're going to find a way to consistently and predictably and reliably solve problems with fidelity. So when we think about pitching, you have to put yourself in the position of the person that you're pitching to. Another thing that's helpful for me is to replace the word pitch sometimes with an invitation. You are inviting them to explore possibilities with you, possible solutions with you. It's an invitation, because what you're doing through your selling is you're actually serving them, and you're doing a disservice by not sharing with them how you can help them solve their problem. So it's a disservice not only to them, but also to you, because in order for a business to stay in business, you have to open your mouth and speak about that thing. So when I think about some of the common missteps in general, people don't know what to say, how to say it, or who to say it to. So forgive me if I'm a bit long-winded here, but I want to spend just a second
Oh, go
talking
ahead.
people through this. Okay, so when you think about what to say and how to say it, that comes in the form of an email or of a voice conversation, if you will. But if you're doing it by email, for example, and if you're not taking notes, I would suggest you take some now. The best way via email is to first introduce yourself with a strong value proposition. Go back and listen to the beginning of this particular recording to hear how Julia introduced me. My value proposition was inside of that bio. You'll catch it. So when you introduce yourself, you are going to then give a compliment or a call to commonality. And what does that mean? That means, oh, I noticed we had this in common, or, we may have gone to the same school together, or, oh, I noticed y'all got this award. How excellent is that? So that's how you create that introductory paragraph. And then you just get right to it. What do you actually want? Because people aren't going to read 15 paragraphs about what you want, but they do want to know that you want something. Like, what's the point? Then when you get to that second paragraph, and these are short paragraphs, mind you, no more than 3 to 4 sentences per paragraph. I know you probably learned something different when you were in English class. I always taught 4 to 7 sentences in a paragraph, but in this case, that does not matter. They want to see some white space, because if you just give them this one long blurb, they are not going to read it. They're going to pass on your email. But when you get to that second paragraph, you are going to highlight industry pain points and the risks associated with those pain points if they go unaddressed. So what happens if they decide to ignore or turn a blind eye to these pain points? And then by paragraph 3, you're going to mention some trends that you've noticed while you've supported other clients. So as you've been in the field doing this work, these are some of the things that you've actually noticed about your clients and their results. And you go on to move that into the results you've achieved with your clients and how your solution is going to support the person that you're actually emailing. And then by the time you get to that last paragraph, you're just proposing a time to meet. I always end my emails with a question. Are you available to meet at X time? And then of course there's a little PS at the bottom where I usually say, if you're not the right person for this particular communication, would you mind pointing me in the direction of someone who might need what it is that I'm offering? So essentially that's part of it. And then the who to say it to part, that's the other problem that I see. And when we think about pitching to companies, we're thinking about pitching to people, not the company itself. So not Procter & Gamble, not Nike, not any other well-known brand, if you will, but the people behind those brands, the decision makers. That's also important. I'm just not going to go in and talk to Peggy, who is a low-level manager, for example, because she's not making decisions and she's not writing the checks. She can't tell you whether or not you can come in as a third party and do consulting on their behalf. So you're going to get with someone who actually has some power, some check writing power. And those decision makers vary across industries. But for example, if you're a coach or a consultant, it's going to be the director of something, the chief operations of something, or the vice president of something. Those are usually the titles I try to go with. And then from there, I'll also try through LinkedIn to find other people with similar titles of other departments within that organization that I might also want to make a connection with. So I always try to connect with 2 to 3 people from one organization, simply because people move, people get different jobs. And if you have a lead there and they leave all of a sudden, you still need a way to get in contact with that particular audience. So I think to answer your question, it is the what to say, how to say it, and who to say it to. But when it comes to men and women, though, the men and women piece, what's most saddening and most enlightening at the same time is that men tend to be a lot more confident and self-assured. They're not afraid to make mistakes. They'll bump their head and they'll take those lessons along the way. They won't sit and fumble with their thoughts. They won't get inside of their head. They will just take the action and execute. And this is just my experience on the way I see it with the clients that I work with. Women, on the other hand, they tend to second guess themselves. They're slow to take action because they are trying to figure it out. Am I doing this the best way? Is this the best path forward? So I wish I saw as much action taking inside of the women's perspective as I did in the men, specifically for the clients that I worked with. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. I mean, and there were so many nuggets in there. So if you're watching, I want to make sure that you took some notes or recorded or something, because there's just so much good stuff in there. One of the things that I want to go back to, what that was really essential, was making sure that you're providing some context as to why you're trying to solve this problem, right? So if you're putting a pitch out there, it's not that, hey, let me do this thing for you. You're providing some context to say, this is what's happening in the industry. This is why this matters. And then also, like you said, finding the right person to talk to instead of just kind of spraying and praying. And I feel like that's where the pitching sometimes gets a negative connotation, is because people are just spraying and praying. They're just sending out emails and whatever, or LinkedIn DMs to whoever will listen. And so again, it gives you that icky feeling. And then the last thing that you mentioned there, which kind of hits hard for me as a woman, but the fact is, for a lot of times we don't take as much action as we should, because like you said, we're thinking about it, analysis paralysis, whatever the case is. And our male counterparts, they're going and getting it. And so I love the idea of for us to show up in that same level of confidence, bump our head, fall down, scrape our knee, and then get back to it. But I want to take a step back really quickly. Because someone may listen to this and say, okay, this seems like a lot of work, that I have to have this industry stuff, and I've got to do all this and send these emails. So from your perspective, why is pitching truly important, whether it's moving your business forward or moving your career forward? Like, why is it truly important? Yes, you're positioning yourself, but someone may say, I could position myself by just doing the work and someday someone will see me. Why should they master this skill?
They should master the skill because, first of all, it's important to use your voice. It's important to know your voice and use your voice. And compelling conversation is universal. When you're thinking about a pitch, yes, it sounds like hard work, but it's actually a soft skill that you need to master. So pitches are about being compelling enough to make others pay attention to your solution. And you mentioned it earlier about thinking about it like a mini resume. You want to tout your results. You want to keep a tally of what you are accomplishing on a regular basis. And the reason why this is important is because part of the way people purchase is by way of other people purchasing. They want to see who all has done it before, or who all is going to be over there once I come over there. And if that is the case, you need to be collecting those testimonials about people who have raved about your services. I have a mentor who loves to tell us, you want people to rave about your services, you want them to renew services with you, and you want them to recruit other people to come and do business with you. So rave, renew, and recruit. And if you want those three things to be true to you, you have to be willing and committed to putting your voice out there consistently so that you can be found, because people aren't just going to find you because you put your voice in the void of social media, right? People aren't going to want to be around you if you're just blindly and cold pitching through LinkedIn, for example. It really is about you making the connection of, one, being authentic, but two, building relationships that are genuine. And one thing I think is a misconception about this whole area of pitching is that it's not a long game when it really is. You're not pitching just so you can get the next piece of business. You're also opening a door to a new relationship. And I think if we took that a little bit more seriously and we stopped chomping at the bit of the next little piece of business that would come along, it will take our businesses a longer way. And if we're really and truly looking for longevity inside of this particular industry, it's going to be about the way in which you harness those relationships and you leverage them not only for your own benefit, but you also leverage your relationships that you have to benefit the other people who are inside of your network as well. It's definitely a two-way street, but it's always a long game, never about what can I get short term.
I love that because I think we've entered a season with networking where people are always, it's transactional, right? It's like,
Mhm.
what can Tiffany give me? What can Julia give me? Let me sell whatever my widget is,
Right.
right? Not thinking about cultivating a healthy long-term relationship and realizing that it's okay if the person doesn't buy today
Right.
or they don't hire you today. That's okay. You just nurture the relationship because 6 months from now they may have a need. And then if you've been cultivating that relationship, they're going to reach back out and say, oh, well, Tiffany, I know that we talked a while ago. Are you still doing so-and-so, or would you be able to come to my organization and what have you? So I love the idea of like, it's a long game. Like, let's not get caught up in the, the instant, like the microwavable success.
Yeah.
And so I want to take a step back though, because we talked about those who may have business results and things that they can share. But suppose Julia Rock is launching her business for the first time. I don't necessarily have the results that I can say I've done this, that, and the other thing, and I've worked with all these clients. So for those who are listening, who are early at whether in their career or launching their business and they don't have results just yet, how can you craft a pitch that's still compelling?
Absolutely. I love this question because people don't think that they have any experience once they start their new business when they have all of the experience in the world with other clients, if you will. Your client just happened to be your previous employer. So think about it in terms of how you would go after a promotion, for example. When you have your annual or your quarterly or your weekly check-ins with your senior manager, one of the things you should be doing, if you're not already doing it, is highlighting the ways in which you've helped to save the company money, keep disaster from striking, rallying the team together to complete a project, mitigating risk, advancing causes, earning new business, quelling crises. Those things matter. And those are things that you can start to reframe when you start to earn business from new companies. So you are pitching yourself on a daily basis on that particular job. So just like you let those executives know that you're a problem solver, you need to let your new potential clients know that you're that same problem solver. So when you get started, or if you're a beginner, it's really about porting those experiences and just transferring them over into your business, because it's more so, do you have the skill to help me than it is how many people have you helped? That's not necessarily what businesses are looking for when they're looking for third parties like us to come in and support them with consulting or coaching services. They want to know, what types of results can you yield on our behalf? Did that answer your question?
Yes, I love it because it's not about necessarily listing your stats. If it's very
Right.
clear that you understand the problem that they're having and you
Mhm.
have a very articulate, specific solution to solve it, you can still have a conversation with someone. So thinking about leadership, and like you said, mentioning toxic teams, if an organization is dealing with a toxic team, or they have a toxic divisions, or they're having infighting or conflict, if you come in and say, hey, I fully understand what you're experiencing. I fully understand what the problem is. And here's my solution. Here's the value. And here's the results that you could potentially get. They're going to have that conversation regardless of, or whether or not you have a deep bench of historical clients. Because right now it's like, can you solve what we have? Because we have an urgent problem. You know what
Right.
I mean? And
Absolutely.
clearly we can't fix it ourselves. So I love that. And so wanting to think about just digging in a little bit more deeply for those who are on the line, who are like, well, hey, I don't really know if pitching is for me because I'm just going to my 9 to 5 every day. I'm clocking in and I'm clocking out. And we talked a little bit about the promotions, but they may say, how can this really apply to me in my life? Because I'm not launching a business to help a company with something. I'm just
Mhm.
trying to go and be successful at work. How can this apply to them?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're thinking about your pitch, you know that you're selling yourself daily, essentially. And even though pitching is not about selling and it's about showing that you can be helpful with solutions, one of the things that you want to remember when you're on your 9 to 5 is that you have to be able to accurately articulate how it is that you're supporting your company. So just like a pitch needs to be succinct, so do you when you are verbalizing how you've supported the company. Because when it comes time for that annual review, or when it comes time for you to make a decision on that offer that they just gave you, you need to be able to accurately depict what you've been able to help that company to achieve or accomplish. And even if it's not trying to get a promotion, but it's trying to get a new vending machine inside of the workspace, you need to be able to speak compellingly about that, right? So we can use pitches in so many areas of our work experience, even if it's trying to rally a team together around a specific cause that needs to materialize within the company. You're going to need to pitch that, and you're going to need to position it in a way that moves the hearts and the minds of the people under the umbrella of that company. So I would say that pitching is something that you are doing regularly. You probably just don't even realize it. And if people aren't typically moving to the beat of the drum, especially if you're the leader within your organization or a leader in your organization, if they're not if they're not inspired to move behind you, then you probably need to tweak your own pitch.
And I love that the idea is pitching is not something for salespeople, right? It's
Right.
not just, or even just entrepreneurs. The idea is that each of us, no matter where we are in our journey, we can benefit from pitching and being able to provide a solution, highlight value. Like you said, even if you want the vending machine at work, you've just got to be able to build a compelling case for why something should happen. And so I love the idea of kind of just demystifying the idea of pitching. And like we started with, it feels icky at times because like I'm really hoping they buy my stuff, right? And it's like that's
Mhm.
not what pitching is about. It's about positioning value and solving problems. And
Absolutely.
so we're getting close to the end here. So if you're listening and you have not yet shared a question, I see Nina has joined us. Hey Nina, thank you so much. If you haven't dropped a question yet, I would love for you to drop that in the chat. We got to get Tiffany while she's here, y'all. Got to get Tiffany while she's here. And so what would be the final piece of advice? We've talked about so much today. You've shared a little bit about how to put your pitch together in terms of, having what is it that you're solving, the industry insights, the value that you provide. You talked a little bit about that and why it's important, the difference between men and women. You've shared so much with us today. If you think about the last piece of advice for someone who's just like, I know that I need to pitch better. I'm trying. I know that my business is going to grow if I become better at pitching. What would be your final piece of advice for those individuals?
I would say, and this some of what I'm going to say is going to be a slightly controversial, but I want you to take a beat. Get comfortable with using your own voice and learn to love the sound of it. What do I mean by that? If you aren't great with words, I do not advise using the newest tools that we have like Chat GPT or any other artificial intelligence devices, if you will, because as I mentioned earlier, words and being able to use them is a soft skill that you must build. And I want you to get the support you need if you know that that's an area that you struggle in. So if you want to be able to articulate yourself more clearly and be good not just on paper, but in real time, then I need you to get support with that. Because one of the things that's happening is people are using Chat GPT and getting great results, but they aren't those people in real life. They can't speak like the Chat GPT makes them to speak. And part of pitching is using your words in a compelling fashion. So I would recommend like books like Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. And those types of books can help you to create a story arc for your own experience. And the other piece of that is really understanding who you are talking to, meaning not just who is the person and what is their title, but literally who they are. That's a part of the relationship building that people are missing on LinkedIn when they're just jumping in and say, hey, I have this thing, I'd like you to buy it. But you don't know me. You don't even know if this thing is what I need. Because if you took the time to build a relationship with me, you know that even though my title says this, my team is really struggling with this, or I'm personally struggling with this, and I could really use some help in that particular area. But you have to take the time to build a relationship. And of course, you have to come in people's inboxes in a way that they're going to be open to even receiving you. Right. So that takes words, and that takes care with words. So what do they care about? What is their perspective on the problems that you say you solve? And how do you ask questions that utilize that information so that you can continuously improve on your pitch? So when you're thinking about pitching, I want you to start removing yourself from the equation and putting yourself in a place of service and curiosity.
And so a little bit of a follow-up question to that, because especially since you mentioned LinkedIn, what are your thoughts on video pitches? Because, we have all the elements we talked about putting it in an email, but what are your thoughts for someone saying, hey, should I send them a video? Am I trying too hard? Right? Like, you never want to be the person who's like doing the most, right? Because then you don't want to be tossed aside. So what are your thoughts about using video and trying to be more creative?
Yeah, I love video. Actually, I think that there's an additional layer of authenticity that comes with video, especially since it's a break in the pattern, because most people are going to be sending text-based messages. The one thing that I will say about video is, even though you don't want it to feel practiced or rehearsed, you need to practice because you don't
rehearse, y'all.
Yes, because you need to know exactly what you are going to say, and you need to be very succinct when you are saying it. You don't want to end up blabbering on for 4 minutes long, for example, when it really only needs to be 45 to 60 seconds as an introductory way to create a touch point or a pathway to them, and then allow them to respond. And of course, there are idiosyncrasies to that, and how long should you wait to respond or to reach back out and all of that. But I love video pitching for the fact that it is a pattern interrupt. And when we are talking about building strong businesses, innovation is a part of that. And I feel like video, even though we use it all the time on Instagram, we shy away from it here on LinkedIn. At least I don't see that as much. Whenever people are spamming me inside of my LinkedIn inbox, and I call it spamming because they're not interested in knowing me in the least bit, it's usually via text. It's not via a video. And with the video, you can always personalize it by using the person's name that you're reaching out to, so that it won't even feel like you're saying the same thing over and over and you're just sending it out to a bunch of different people with no name. So personalize your videos as well. When you're doing your video pitch, include their name, but also include something that you noticed about them, and really make it an introductory, hey, would love to know more about you, specifically X, Y, and Z, as it states in your profile, for example. So that's what I would say about the video piece.
I love that. Because I think there are so many people who are trying to use video, but they're not really sure, because to your point, it's either not personalized, or it's coming off as spammy, or they're trying to sell all their wares in the first 20 seconds, and it's turning people off. So I'm glad that there's an idea of how to tastefully use video and be innovative and creative. Yeah. And I want to go back to something that you mentioned about getting support where you need it, because a little birdie told me that you've got an event coming up next month with where you're going to be actually providing some support. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the event we have coming up is called 3P Live, and that's short for Pitches, Proposals, and Partnerships Live, which are the three core elements that you're going to need in order to build out a solid consultancy. So we teach you exactly how to pitch by providing you different pitch templates, and we also make sure that you understand exactly what should be inside of a pitch. We go through what proposals should look like, how they should sound, and we also talk about partnerships. Partnerships, not only in the sense of business partnerships, but partnerships with the people that you're trying to do business with. How do you make sure that it's a lasting engagement with your partners? How do you get them to renew time and again? And we overall just cover the nuts and bolts of what it takes to build a coaching or consulting agency. We actually have a curriculum, Julia, and that curriculum, I happen to have it just sitting here because it's like a Bible for most of my students. And so we are not just talking to you, we are actually utilizing the curriculum that we've been using for the past, I would say, about 3.5 years now. We've been using this curriculum, and just within the last 12 months, we've helped women to land over $500,000 in corporate contracts just in the last 12 months. And I'm really excited about that because the people who are going to be at this 3-day event, they are going to get a taste of what that means, and they'll walk away with an actual blueprint for landing their first or next corporate contract by using the skills that they already have. So this event's going to take place October 18th, 19th, and 20th right here in Houston, Texas. Tickets are on sale now. And Julia, I do believe you have a link that you could be sharing with your audience. And so I'm sure you're going to post it. And if you all use Julia's link, it's going to take you directly to the website. And I'm also happy to share that website, but she also has the information for you. And once you register, there are 3 different ways that you can register. You can do a standard ticket, which gets you access to all of the content and the information, and it gets you inside of the room. But then there is the VIP experience, which is,
Come on, VIP.
yes, I love a good VIP experience now. That VIP experience is sprinkled with a little bit of extra fairy dust, if you will. So you'll receive some lunches that'll be inside of there. There's a Tiffany and Friends forum that you'll be able to attend, and you'll have access to reserved seating, things of that nature. So people who like a little bit of an upgrade, you'll get a swanky swag bag that comes along with that. And then there is the ultra VIP. That's like the super luxe experience where, you don't have to really worry about anything because your food is going to be covered. You know that you're going to have the best seats in the house, and you're going to have access to an additional mastermind that will happen with me and some of my special guests who will be there on the final day of the experience. So it's all happening in the city center, 18th, 19th, and 20th of October. So it's coming up. We're about a month away.
I'm just listening to all the goodies, and me personally, I love a good VIP experience. So
Yes.
I'm on board. It's like, how do I get above the standard ticket? But that sounds like an amazing event. So if you're listening and you're thinking about how do I grow and scale my business, especially from a consulting or coaching standpoint, if you're an entrepreneur who's listening, it sounds like this is the event that you want to be a part of. I will share the link on all the locations of this recording so that you guys can actually take a look at it and sign up to attend. And so I want to say, Tiffany, thank you. You have shared so much tonight, just so much value. I mean, I learned, and I've known you for how long now, and I still feel like I learned something new every time that we have a conversation. And so if people want to connect with you before we wrap up, where are the locations for people to connect with you if they want to work with you or just follow your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to reach me here on LinkedIn at Tiffany A Washington, and you can shoot me a message and we can get the conversation started there. You can also reach me on Instagram, and I'm at Transformation7 on Instagram as well. I would say those are the 2 best places to reach me. You'll probably find more daily content on Instagram. I probably post on LinkedIn maybe 2 to 3 times per week, but I'm always in my inbox talking to people, having conversations. So feel free to reach out.
All right, y'all. You heard it here first. You got to get with her on Instagram and on LinkedIn. So please make sure to connect with Tiffany. Thank you again, Tiffany. Let me check the comments one last time to make sure I didn't miss any questions. But I want to say thank you for sharing your insights and perspectives with us in terms of how to create a winning pitch for your success. Thank you for your time. And everyone, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Hopefully you found this conversation helpful. Again, if you want to catch the replay of this episode, let's say you joined late, you can head to rockcareer.com/CC archive, and you can watch this episode and all past episodes. Thank you for watching tonight's episode of The Career Climb. We'll be back hopefully next week. I'll be traveling. Let's see if I'm able to make it work. But if not, I'll definitely be back the week after that. And we'll be there with another conversation. Have a good night, everyone. And thank you again, Tiffany.
Absolutely. Thank you, Julia.